in common is our love for pigeons. And yeah, I wondered if you could see them, or whether they like land on your window ledge, or there seem to be so many in New York.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But here's the funny part. It's not really in my neighborhood. Like I try to feed the
Oh, okay.
I try to feed the pigeons in my neighborhood, but it's not there aren't too many like big flocks. So I usually like
Right.
feed them along the way in my passing, like wherever I'm going, like I find them and I feed them. Like if I'm in the city, especially in Manhattan. I live in Brooklyn, but especially in Manhattan.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, cool. Okay. Because my geography is terrible, so I'm not really. It's like just a different place to. Oh, okay. So they tend to be in, because the footage that you get of them and you feeding them is just beautiful.
Thank you.
And there's just so many of them. It's absolutely fantastic. There's so many.
Yeah.
You do great. Are there other people out there that look after, that are sort of feeding them as well? Is there a bit of interest around it?
There interest. I don't see a lot of interest, but there are some really interesting characters. Like New York is like a place full of very interesting individuals. Like I don't know if you're familiar with Mother Pigeon, Tina
Yes.
Pena.
Yes.
Oh,
Great.
she's a friend of mine. She lives in Bushwick, and she feeds flocks in Bushwick. There's also a gentleman out here named Larry the Birdman, who's known for being in Washington Square Park. Like he gets the birds to fly, he gets them to do all kind of tricks, and he feeds them, and he'll like, and he's great. I mean, he has a sort of a strange personality, but what he does is he encourages people to feed the pigeons, to like make that connection, to show that they're not these filthy animals that everybody thinks they are. So there's interesting characters throughout the city, but yeah, it's really it. I mean, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot more than what I mentioned, but those are two people that really stand out to me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh, I mean, I assumed there were more people, and I guess when you're out, especially when you're filming yourself, looking after them and caring for them, feeding for them, I imagine people are interested in what you're doing anyway. Like if they see that happening.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes people,
I don't know.
they stop, and they want to know, like, how do you get them to land on you? I'm like, I don't make them. They that's their choice. Like they choose who they're safe around. And I think a lot of times when they see the same person and they get familiar with that one particular person, they feel safe.
Mhm.
So it's, like they chose me. I don't choose them.
Yeah. Oh, it's lovely. I think, what you do. I mean, obviously, this podcast isn't about pigeons, but it's just something we really have in common.
Hey,
Obviously, it's about pigeons.
listen,
But yeah,
we could talk about whatever
that's
you
how
want.
I was aware of you. We'll just talk about pigeons for hour.
Let's go.
Well, I think that's kind of I just think it's a good place to start. So the reason that I was kind of made aware of what you were doing was because Anna from Northeast Animal Rights over here in the UK messaged me and asked me to send one of our hats that's got a pigeon on over to you. And I was like, oh, right, here's this guy. Then I looked, I was like, oh, he's amazing. Look what he's doing. Like all the vegan activism you do, and then all the stuff with pigeons is absolutely incredible. And I shared one of your videos recently. Oh, amazing. That's it. That's that.
I gotta...
Is that still the original hat? I must send you a new one. I have to send you a new one out.
I would appreciate that.
It's amazing.
It's still one of my favorites.
Oh, I'll get you a new one out. I'll send it out this week. Yeah, it's just great what you do, and I think and you're right. It's that connection with people coming, seeing you with the birds, seeing you not hurting you,
mm-hmm.
and you're clearly healthy, and and having that connection between that animal, and then thinking, oh, I thought they were dirty, and I think that's a good way into get people to understand all animals, isn't it? And sort of and make that connection with veganism as well, and just with kindness and. Yeah. It all comes together, doesn't it? It really does. So you seem to do so much. There's so many levels to what you do to get people engaged with veganism.
There's a method to the madness. Like I don't just do it to do it. Like most of the time I feed these animals and I just go about my business. But a lot of times, like if I feel inspired or I feel motivated enough to teach someone, I'll record a video to just to show people a different perspective. You know what I'm saying? Because like too
Yeah.
many animals in New York and all over the world get a bad reputation. So I feel like if I can make a video and connect that way with people, then hopefully they'll change their perception. And it works because people DM me all the time and like they'll send me videos like, hey, look, I'm feeding the pigeons in my neighborhood, or I'm feeding the pigeons near my work. So it's definitely,
That's amazing.
yeah, it has an impact, and I'm proud of that. So, I'm changing people's minds and perspectives with those videos.
Yeah. Oh, you absolutely are. Is that your cat?
Yes, that's what
She's
one
gorgeous.
one that's Fern. Hold on one second. Yeah, baby.
Okay.
I know. I know. Yeah. That's Fern. She's in the room with me.
Oh,
She's trying to get out. Yeah, she's over.
oh bless her.
Hey,
Oh,
go. Go ahead. Yeah, I'm in my bedroom. My son, he's loud. He's on that video game, and I had to close the door. I didn't know she was
great.
in here under the bed, so she just wanted to get out.
You're all good. Oh, yes. Well, we got to see her, and she's really
Yeah,
cute.
thank you. She's adorable. That's my sweetheart.
Yeah, oh, yeah, she's lovely. Oh, yeah. No, it's hard, isn't it, with stuff in the background? Yeah, I always worry about the dogs barking and things. Well, you mentioned your son as well. I see you do you do a lot now with talking to the children at the schools in your area about veganism. That's something I've seen you doing recently as well. So, how did that come about? Is that at your son's school or?
No, there's schools all over New York. I visit every borough. I'm here in Brooklyn. I don't know if you know how New York is like splintered into boroughs. Are you familiar with that? There's
Mm-hmm.
Brooklyn, Queens, Bronx,
Yeah,
man. Okay. Well, I wrote this book. It's called Liberation Summer, and I
Liberation
wrote that
Summer.
back in
Right.
2019, early 2019. There was a lot going on that year. The city was trying to pass a fur ban, which would prohibit the sale of fur in New York City, which fell through for a number of ridiculous reasons. But anyway, um, I wrote this book based on my own life experiences, but it's told through the perspective of a 17-year-old boy who just finished high school. And he starts to realize that animals are itemized. They're commodified. They're jailed. Their their bodies are their bodies are itemized. So I worked in food service for a very long time, and I started to like really like question, where do we get our food from, and like why so much, how many? Because in my naive mind, I always thought a farm was like an old McDonald rhyme. I thought it was just like an open air place, a dozen or so chickens, a cow, a goat. I didn't realize these places called factory farms exist. And this is back maybe 25 years ago. I'm 45, so yeah. And I just wrote about my experiences in the book, but through the lens of a young child, and how he changed his life within a summer, from being a regular kid just trying to pay for his way through college to this activist who advocated for animals and advocated for health in his community. So Liberation Summer is based on that. And it teaches a lot of different lessons. It teaches about animal rights and why we should have compassion for animals. It teaches about advocating for your community, even when you're just one person. You hear that a lot. People think like, I'm one person, what can I do? And it's like, all it takes is one person to make a change if you really want to, because you inspire others through your actions. So that's what Liberation Summer is about. And this book made it into the hands of a man named Dan Matthews, who worked at PETA for a very long time. And apparently it made it to the hands, well, I don't want to say the hands of Ingrid Newkirk, but I got a call from Ingrid Newkirk saying that she thought it would be a great idea if I can go to schools in New York City, here in New York, and talk to kids about it. And she made that happen. So I have Ingrid Newkirk to thank for that. And
She's amazing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So through one of her subsidiary groups, because PETA has like these groups under their umbrella, and one of them is called Teach Kind, which is a collection of different teachers that from the New York area and they put these talks together. So I go to schools, they set it up. I just go. I have a PowerPoint. I teach them about compassion for animals. I teach them how to eat healthy, and then they get a free vegan chicken sandwich, courtesy of Secret Vegan Kitchen. So it's like a whole experience for them. They get a free book, they get free food, and they get to hear me ramble for an hour.
That's incredible. That's absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
How do they, yeah. So what response do you get? Because I've seen Peter have videoed some of your talk, and you're such a good speaker anyway. And I think you come across as so approachable and so kind, that, and I can imagine that the kids really respond to you. And seen, I've seen a video of it, and just thought it was absolutely fantastic. In fact, over here, I went to a dinner with Peter not long ago, and they played a bit of it. I was like,
Oh, really?
it's Vigilante Vegan. We were all really excited. Yeah, it was amazing to see. And just to watch you working, and the kids really engaged with what you were saying. And that book, that book you wrote sounds absolutely incredible. That's fantastic that you've done that. And I'm not surprised Peter wanted to get you on board and help. How do you find, do they have questions for you, the children? And how is there any engagement from the parents? What do they have to say about it? Or
Well, as far as engagement from the kids, absolutely. So I leave a Q&A open at the end of each talk. So kids can ask me any questions that they have. The engagement is always very positive. They're kids. Their minds are like sponges. They just absorb. They want to know. They want to learn. I find it to be a lot easier to speak to kids than to actually speak to adults who have been indoctrinated into a belief that animals are here for us. We wear them, we eat them. That's just the cycle of life, and everything else that we've been taught and never really questioned. So a lot of people are very guarded about their beliefs, but with children, their minds are open. They're very curious, so they want to know more, and they ask really great questions. And I get really good engagement. As far as parents, I I leave on the PowerPoint my email, my Instagram, and anything else where they, well, not my phone number, ways that they could communicate with me. But I haven't really had any engagements, well, at least negatively, with parents. I've had very little engagement with parents who have thanked me for opening their eyes and teaching their kids to eat a little healthier because it inspired them. So it's always very positive. But me, sometimes all the time I'm very pessimistic. So I'm always worried I'm going to get that email. How dare you teach my kids? Like, but it hasn't happened yet,
yeah,
thankfully.
that's great.
Hmm.
Oh, well, there you go. There's no need to be pessimistic about that there. Sounds like they're absolutely loving it. That's fantastic. Yeah, that's always the worry, isn't it? When especially if you're talking to young people, there's always the worry that you are perceived as influence, which is literally what you are doing. You're influencing them, but if that can come across because they don't want to change the way they feel about things,
Right.
that the and I mean, like all of us, the parents, I don't know, I'm guessing you weren't vegan from birth?
No, I went vegan, I would say 14 years ago. 2011 is my math right.
Yeah. So yeah, back then, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess I wonder whether our parents almost would feel insulted because they taught us a certain way, because that's what they were taught, that this was right and this was the healthy way to bring you up. Because all parents want to, generally want to bring their children up in their belief system and to be as healthy as they can be and to nourish you. So I guess for us to stand here and say, well, actually, what you're doing is wrong, it can be a little bit insulting. So yeah, I can see why you've got that pessimism about that. So the fact that the kids are going home and they're happy, they're engaged with it and they're happy, and that's absolutely wonderful. I mean, absolutely brilliant. So what sort of age children is it that you go and speak to?
They're usually between the ages of 10 and 12, sometimes a little older, sometimes uh, 13, depending on the grade. But we talk to fifth and sixth graders here, because when I wrote the book, I initially wrote it for teenagers because, again, the main character in the book is Jaden Young. He's 17 years old. He's on his way out of high school. So I wrote that book for teenagers because I had a book prior to this called Kayla the Vegan, which speaks to like 9-year-old, 10-year-old kids. And when I pitched the idea to Peter, they said they wanted to go with Liberation Summer. I favored Caleb more because that was my first book. And that book was inspired by Genesis Butler. So the character has a lot of similarities to a very young Genesis Butler. Are you familiar with Genesis?
No.
Oh wow. Yeah, Genesis is an amazing young girl who's doing great things as far as vegan activism, as far as climate change is concerned. She's the great grandniece of Cesar Chavez, who was
Oh,
a
okay.
labor union organizer of Mexican descent here in United States. He organized unions. He fought for workers' rights, and he was eventually assassinated for what he stood for. But Genesis is a blood relative of Cesar Chavez, and she's kind of carrying on his legacy through her activism. And she went vegan when she was 6 years old. And she told a story in this documentary one time about how the kids in school used to torment her and throw like little slices of bologna and all kind of things at her and make fun of her because she's vegan. But it didn't deter her. I mean, look at her now. She's doing a lot of amazing things. And that book was inspired by her story. But Liberation Summer was inspired by me, so they went with Liberation Summer, which I'm not mad. It's still a great story, if I may say so
Yeah, that's
myself.
fantastic.
But yeah, so that's how that ended up happening. And Ingrid Newkirk pulled whatever magical string she pulled on her end, and now I'm in schools. And that was my dream to talk to kids in school. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but yeah, they made it happen.
That's fantastic. Yeah, and all credit to you. I mean, you're giving credit to Ingrid. She's got a huge team behind her. I love Peter, and I think the work they do is absolutely fantastic. But yeah, for you to go and do that, that's incredible. It's you doing all the hard work and the graft. So yeah, thank you on behalf of all the vegans watching, because I just think what you do is inspirational.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. What's the so in your area, I know you go all over, like you say, to different boroughs to speak to the kids. What is veganism like where you are over there? Has it changed in the last 14 years? Or what's sort of the attitude towards it where you are?
Well, like the last couple of years has been very challenging because here in New York, well, I don't know how it is in other states, but here in New York, we've seen a lot of vegan restaurants and businesses shut down, like one after the
Yeah.
other, and which is pretty
Hmm.
disheartening. But the overall view of it has changed. Like a lot of people looked at it from a health perspective, but now they're starting to realize the connection between what we eat and what happens to the planet. They start to see the connection between what we eat and how it affects animals and how it affects our overall health. So people are starting to get it, but with anything else, like with new information, it takes time to process. One thing I'm very careful with is trying to meet people where they are. Like a lot of vegans, my approach to veganism and activism is a lot different from most people. Most people are very aggressive about it. Most people are into shaming people that are not vegan. I don't do that because I realized at one time we weren't vegan. And some of us took a while to get there. Like I think the first time I ever seen a factory farming video, I must have been 19 years old. I was really young. I didn't go vegan until I was 31. So, I mean, it takes people some time. Some people it might take them far less time. Some people it might take them a lot more time. But you have to meet people where they are, and you have to be kind and compassionate with the language and the messaging, so that people can understand um, and be able to like fully embrace it. And unfortunately, we live in a world where people only um, react to change as far as it relates to them personally. But we have to try to show people that like we don't want to wait until you're affected by something for you to care about it. Like there's billions and billions of animals that are sacrificed yearly for the choices that we make, and you could change that. You don't have to wait until like you get diabetes or a heart condition. It's it You don't have to wait till that. We have to understand that these things affect other people as well, like their land. We don't take into consideration the fact that billions and billions of cows are being brought into this world already assigned a death date in the Amazon rainforest, where indigenous people live, where indigenous animals live. Their habitats are being compromised so that people in the West could have burgers with cheese. So while you might not be affected by that, somebody else on the other part of the world is being greatly affected by what's happening because of the choices that we make. So, I try to be kind with that message to let them understand that, and hopefully it sinks in and they make those changes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like you say, we were all there. Not many people. I'm seeing kids here now, very young kids coming through as vegans from birth with vegan parents.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm a little bit older than you, but a similar sort of age-ish. And yeah, I mean, we had to wake up and see it, didn't we? And you're right. You do have to remember that we weren't always there to begin with, and it's hard. And like you say, it can take people years and years and years, can't it, to make that change? And some people change overnight, but it's not always as simple as that. And I think
wish it
where
was.
you live and grateful, yeah, it'd be amazing. Yeah, it would be amazing. And as you say, like the landscape is a really big thing, certainly here in the UK, and I'm in Wales. The landscape around here, it's just all grass field after grass field after grass field. And I think we've become so used to seeing that. And then when you say to people, well, actually, this would have been a forest before, and they're like, oh, well, why isn't it a forest? And you say, well, because of agriculture, because the animals need to graze, and they're horrified that, so they'll either go about, like you say, like the Amazon rainforest, but won't look at actually what's right in front of them.
Right.
It's terrifying.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
It's terrifying. Do you see, without knowing the geography of exactly where you are there a lot of sort of slaughterhouses and things there? Do you have any animal agriculture right on your doorstep? Or is it more that everything's shipped into where you are?
We see it on a small scale here in New York. We have what's called live markets. And
right.
And unfortunately they're placed in neighborhoods that are primarily occupied by Black and brown folks. So because these places are filthy, that they push out a lot of waste into our water supply, our air supply. People they walk through the filth on the sidewalks that are pushed out of these live markets into the streets. So it's a lot of different effects because these places exist. And for a while, thank you. For a while, we've been working on trying to eliminate live markets, from these neighborhoods because of not because of what they do to the animals, but because of like the devastating effects it has on the communities. And oftentimes people don't care about what happens in communities of color. People don't care about what happens to Black and brown folks. So let's just put a live market in their neighborhood. You're not going to see a live market on Park Avenue. You're not going to see a live market on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, because there's a different tax bracket. It's a different demographic of people. So it has an effect on the community and the neighborhoods, and there's a lot of them. I think in the 5 boroughs, there's anywhere between 80 and 95 different markets where you can go in and you can pick out a chicken or a rabbit or a goat or a pigeon and order their death and take them home and eat them. Yeah, so we've been spending a lot of time for a number of years, just standing out of these places and giving people correct information, letting them know that, hey, listen, uh, this choice that you're making to go in there and have an animal slaughtered so that you can have dinner not only causes this animal their life, but it also has devastating effects on what happens in your community, what happens to the water you drink, what happens to the air you breathe. And yeah, so
That's horrendous.
yeah.
So these markets, these are not for other farmers, other people breeding animals to go in and buy the animals. These are actually for members of the public to go in and choose an animal so that they can take the meat away.
Right. Yeah.
Is that right?
Absolutely.
That just doesn't happen here. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my days. That's a whole. I don't know why I find that's a whole other level. So over here, our markets will be, there will be sheep and cattle in them or whatever animals they're selling, but it'll be other farmers going in with trailers and buying those animals to take them away to use. And then, I mean, they all end up in the same place. But to have members of the public walking in and choosing,
Yeah.
that's really shocking.
Yeah, you and I could walk in there right now and point out whatever chicken or whatever rabbit or any other animal that they sell and say, I want that one. Can you quarter them? Can you defeather? And yeah, that's a real thing. Unfortunately.
Good grief. Yeah, that's just, oh, I mean, that's even more. I find that even more sad because those people know what they're doing. Because I can understand the disconnect when you're walking into a supermarket and you are just seeing rows of flesh. It's packaged, it's in plastic, it's not even really saying which part, it's not called flesh, is it? It's meat, it's food. So people are completely disconnected. But to have that go in and actually look at a live animal and say, I want that one to be killed, that's properly shocked me. I told you I wasn't very worldwide. That's absolutely shocking. How do you even start a conversation with somebody who has the money in their hand and wants to go in and actually cause that? That's completely different, isn't it, to the
Oh,
supermarket sitting?
oh, it gets interesting. Some people are angry that we're there, and yeah, they ignore us. They go in, they order the death of an animal, and they walk out with that animal in a bag and like in separated parts. There's people that actually um, listen and leave. They'll pull up in their car and like they see us standing there, they'll take the literature out of our hands, they'll listen to us say what we have to say and leave. you know so it's different, it varies, it goes from like it's some people don't care and some people actually listen and decide right on the spot, you know what, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to buy chicken today. So the only thing as activists we can do is be present and just have information ready, factual information, and um and not make people feel bad about the decisions they're making, but just to inform them. Like I said, I don't believe in making people feel bad about their decisions. I believe in just giving them proper information and letting them, make that choice on their own. We can't force anybody to do anything. We can only hope that they make the right decisions after they encounter us.
Good grief. That must be really hard for you. Really hard for people going into to talk to them knowing what's going on just a few meters away. That's really difficult.
It is, but you have to keep your composure in situations like that,
Uh-huh.
because sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it, and we have to be careful how we say things sometimes. Tomorrow here in the states is Martin Luther King Day. Martin Luther King said a lot of powerful things, but it wasn't what he said as much as how he said it. Well, they both had impact. Don't get me wrong, because there are people that had the same message but were a little more aggressive and a little more fiery about it. Um, but I believe in the approach and how we spread that message. So that's just as important as the
Yeah.
message itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, you're not going to get any respect for what you're saying if you don't treat other people with respect.
Well, my
And yeah.
right, my whole thing is, and it's just because of who I am and just my overall personality. Like, I'm not an aggressive person. I feel like if I can talk to you in a civil tone and make things very clear for you, that you would understand. If I come to you with an open heart, then you will see that I'm not being pushy. And a lot of times I see a lot of vegans come off very pushy to people as if they're holier than thou. Um, and I just don't agree with that approach. I mean, there's a time for aggression and there's a time for education and there's a time for both. But I choose to be very compassionate in my approach with speaking to people. So, listen, I talk to kids. So I can't go into schools and shame 10, 10-year-olds for not being vegan.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. Totally, totally, totally. And well, this is it. That's all part of it, isn't it? If they're going to go home and think they've got your book, they've got your literature, and they've got the facts there, and like you say, they're sponges. But also they're going to go home and say, "Hey, mom, dad, whoever their carers are, this fantastic guy came in today, and he was so kind, and he said these things." Not just what you're saying, but who you are is going to inspire them, isn't it? And hopefully inspire them to be not just to be vegans, but just to be kinder people and to talk to people with more respect. So I think that's fantastic. So is there anything else you've got? Is it a case of carrying on with the work that you're doing? Do you go back to schools, to the same schools you've been in, or are there just so many that there's still a lot of scope
well,
for you
this
to
will
go in?
be the third year. This will be the
Right.
third. Yeah, this will be the third year. Last year was really really busy. I got to visit a lot of new schools. Some of them are repeat, but they're different students because kids graduate on the next grade, and so there's always like another group of children to spread this message to. So even if I am going to the same school, I'm going to the same school but with different students. And I spoke to one of the organizers, and they're looking to book me with 20 schools or maybe even more this year alone. So we'll see what happens. And that's definitely going to be a lot of new schools for sure.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. Well, I suppose from the teacher's point of view, you're giving those children um I don't mean some teachers have some time off. I don't mean it like that. But you're giving those children a different perspective on things, and that's really good for their overall education anyway. Like as long as it's good, honest information that you can put in, that's fantastic for the schools. So yeah, I wondered whether it was the same schools that go back in. So this is it. They must be really happy with what you're doing to get you to be coming back. That's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it's definitely a blessing. Like the teachers love when I come in. They always thank me because they said like not a lot of people come and talk to children like that. Like it's just every day you come in, you do your work, and it's very seldom that they'll get visitors like authors or people of different occupations that can come in and like just speak to them and spend time with them. So yeah, so I think it's good that I can go in and spend time with them as an author, not just an author, because I get questions about that from the kids too, about like the writing process and how to go about writing a book or making a comic book or stuff like that. But also like somebody that actually wrote a book that is an author that comes to their school and could talk to them about that and talk to them about what the book is about and all the other stuff as well. So yeah, it's definitely an experience, and I don't take it for granted.
Oh, that's incredible. Yeah. Well, it's that. Then it's the whole thing, isn't it? You're such an interesting person, so they can get so inspiration. But they can get so much inspiration from you, and I also feel like that is showing the teachers as well as the children that vegans. You've mentioned vegans being aggressive, or the word that gets bandied around here is militant. And you're showing that actually we're just the same as you. We just have a different opinion, and we can all be kind. And so you're going in and inspiring them that they can be just better people, and do these things. And as you say, also that was your dream activism to go and do it, and that's happened. So even saying that, Tommy's like, guys, like just keep going with your dreams and work hard, and you can do things and you can make a difference.
Yeah. Again, one of the things I tell kids when I show up to these schools, first of all, before I start anything, I always let them know that like each individual has the power to create change, the change you want to see in the world. You have the ability to create and facilitate that change. And it's not something I actually thought about until I got on this call with you. But like I am that example. Like when I talk about it only takes one person to make a change. Like I am that one person. I am that one
Yeah.
person. So that's probably the first time they ever heard about veganism. Well, most of them, because some of these kids tell me that they have a relative that's vegan, or a hand like less than a handful of them tell me that they're already vegan. So but for the majority, it's the first time they're ever hearing about this. And I get to, or maybe they heard a little bit about it, but I get to sit there and just answer any question that they have about veganism, what it means, what it's about. So yeah, it only takes one person, and again, I wrote this book that allows me to talk to them from the perspective of a child and relate to them
Mhm.
on that level. So yeah, it only takes one person.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It does. No, that's so true. It really does only take one person. It really does. And I just think there are so many people as well, vegans and non-vegans, that are just passengers in our own lives. We're just passengers. We're just sitting there and we're going to work because we have to, and we're doing this and paying our taxes. And it's so easy to become a passenger, and you do just need, if one person can come into your life and inspire you with what they say, or with music, or with poetry, or art, or anything, they can just come in and inspire you with their words. That's when you have the confidence to stand up and think, well, actually, I can do this. And I think it's incredible, especially and the fact you're talking to children. That's that's why I wanted to talk to you so much, because I just think it's absolutely incredible. And you're literally inspiring the next generation. So thank you so much. It's absolutely wonderful.
Thanks. I can only hope that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, it looks like it. How has there been any change over there with the word vegan? Because certainly in the UK at the moment, the word vegan has become kind of like a dirty word, to the stage where a lot of businesses and like we were talking about the restaurants closing, which is happening over here as well, are now using the term plant-based or ethical rather than vegan. Do you get any feedback? I don't necessarily mean in the schools now, but just as an adult in that country, have any do you see any of that going on? Is vegan a dirty word over there, or it hasn't quite got to that stage yet?
To some degree, yeah. Like everything that you said, we experience here in the States. A lot of companies like to use plant based because they figure it's safe, it's not threatening. Because a lot of times people hear vegan and they think that's just too aggressive or too extreme, as they like to say. Um, a lot of people like to it they connect it with just angry people. When you hear vegan, you think just an angry person, or a person only cares about animals. That's a negative perception about vegans and veganism. But unfortunately, it's a reality because most vegans only care about the single issues. And I move around in a lot of different spaces, whether it's human rights spaces and environmental spaces. And a lot of people don't even want to identify with the word vegan. There are vegans in those spaces that just don't want anything to do with the community. They don't want anything to do with the word because of the negativity attached to it. And I can understand that. As far as companies go, yeah, they go with plant based because it just sounds pretty. It sounds safe. And I think a lot of it is also because a lot of these companies don't want to do their due diligence. Like they want to sell you a plant based product without actually being held accountable for those products being cruelty free. So that's a big, plant based to me is a easy way to get around the animal cruelty part of things, because there's still a lot of products that we use that are plant based but are rooted in animal cruelty. And I think that term is just a cool way to get around companies making sure that this is a certified product that did not harm animals in some capacity. So yeah, there's everything that you said we experience here. And hopefully we could get around that and people could get a different perspective. And especially from like me, one thing I that is not lost on anything that I do is that I'm a person of color. I'm a black man spreading this message. A lot of times when you see black vegans or what they call influencers, I don't consider myself an influencer, but most of them are influencers. Most of them are pushing like food products or health, or nothing to do with animal rights, nothing to do with environmental issues. Not to say that they don't exist; they are out there, but not a lot are platformed. So I don't take for granted the fact that I'm a black male spreading this message of veganism, and that I'm giving people a different perspective, and I'm showing people that not all vegans are angry, not all vegans are white, they're not all women, and whatever you think they are. We're out there, we do care about what happens to animals, and we're fighting the injustice. We're fighting these systems that oppress animals. We're fighting these systems that are oppressing our waterway and our air and our communities. So I think that's very important that I'm visible in that regard. I don't lose sight of that ever, and I don't take it for granted. And I know a lot of people are probably not going to understand that, but they don't live my reality, or they're not from where I'm from. And maybe instead of just shutting out the conversation altogether, just open your mind and open your heart, and try to understand like how these issues affect people differently. It's easy to tell people just go vegan, but do we know their neighborhood? Do we know, like, and that's, again, this is something I address in the book as well. Like, Jaden lives in one of the poorest parts of Brooklyn in the book, and he's subjected to a food desert. He's subjected to places that serve foods that serve animals that aren't healthy. And that's a reality for most poor communities, whether you're black, brown, white, whatever. You're given what you take what's given to you. Like within arm's reach, there's places out there that serve animal products that aren't healthy. I can go out my door and walk in any direction. I can find a McDonald's, I can find a KFC, a Burger King. Um, I very seldom can I find a healthy fruit market or fruit and vegetable market. And the education on how to eat properly and where to get our nutrition isn't really there. Our doctors don't even have that information. They don't really study nutrition. So how do you expect uh, just regular everyday people trying to survive to get that messaging unless they're looking for it? So yeah, so I think it's very important that we're having these conversations because, again, like, my reality is a lot different from somebody who lives in a neighborhood that has an organic fruit market or a co-op. So you know
Yeah, it's a really good point. Yeah, yeah, it is. It's a big issue, isn't it? It is. And like you say, and even if you can give them all the nutrition advice in the world, but if they can't go and buy the food that we're saying, the fruits and vegetables we're saying to eat, then they're stuck anyway, aren't they? So they are going to just grab the nearest thing. People are hungry and people are busy,
yeah,
you know, and
affordability
and, and it's side of it.
affordability and accessibility is two major things. And I always use
Yeah.
this example. If I'm living on a budget, or I'm me personally, I'm a single dad. I take care of two kids. Most people are going to go for the things that they can afford. Like, take your lunch break for instance. If McDonald's, I don't know what the value meal is these days. I haven't been in a McDonald's in over 20 years, but if you give someone the option of a burger, fries, and a soda for $7 or $8 or whatever it is, that's the price of a cup of like fresh cut fruit in a supermarket. And that's why people think it's
Yeah.
expensive to eat healthy, because they're getting less for their money. So if you give a person on their lunch break
Yeah.
the option of $8, a burger, fries, and soda, or a healthy salad or fruit, they're gonna go more for the thing that's gonna hold them over until dinner. They're
Yeah.
gonna want more for their money. How do we
Yeah.
how do
Yeah.
how do we have this conversation with people that are just trying to get more for their money? The value
Yeah.
meal,
They're just trying to get through the day.
right?
Yeah.
So they're not worried about what happens to an animal. They're worried about how can I fill my belly? Like, how can I sustain myself
Yeah.
on very little? And I don't blame them for that. But
Yeah.
we have to. That's where education comes in.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, that's brilliant. The book that you share at the schools, is that something that people can purchase online as well, or is that just for you and Peter? Is that something that we can look at?
Well, it's available on Amazon right now, and, like, for all intents and purposes, if
Is it?
people don't want to, yeah, because it's done through a publishing company called KDP, which is a subsidiary group of Amazon, because they self-published books. Because when I started pitching the idea of a vegan children's books, most publishers, excuse me, I guess didn't see the value in it, or just didn't want to touch it. So I said, you know what, DIY. I'll do it myself. I'll self publish it.
Yeah.
I'll pay an editor. I'll pay an illustrator, and I'll put it out myself. And I put it on KDP Publishing, which is again through Amazon. So you could get the books through Amazon.com. And if people don't want to go to Amazon
Brilliant. So
for
we can go and have a look at that.
a plethora of reasons why they don't want to, I fully understand. But again, like so many of these books go out to kids for free anyway. So I don't do this for the money. I do it just to spread a message so that people could understand about the choices that they make and how they affect other parts of our reality.
Um, oh, that's awesome. Oh, sorry, we had a glitch there, I think. That's absolutely amazing. And how can people find you? Do you want to just, if they want to get in touch with you, your Instagram handle, or what's the best way to get in touch with you?
My Instagram, vigilante_vegan. That's the easiest way. I have a Gmail, Stuart Mitchell 1978 at gmail.com. That's really, I'm not like a big social media
Right.
person. I have a TikTok, but I hardly use it. I did. They took TikTok down
Yeah.
here in the States, and then 14 hours later they put it back up. So TikTok is still up.
Yeah, I saw that. It's crazy what's going on over there at the moment with politics, isn't it? That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah,
Like, oh
for
my God.
sure.
Like, yeah, it's all. So, if you could go back, the last sort of thing I wanted to ask you, if you could go back to your pre-vegan days, or even your days before. I know you say you're not an influencer, but you do influence people online and with what you do. You inspire me every day when I see your Instagram. If you could go back before all of that, even if it's as far back as when you were a kid, is there something you would tell yourself?
As far as
Have you
veganism,
got any advice for anything?
follow your dreams, I guess. I'm or don't be afraid to dream. I'm 45 years old and I still don't know what I want to do with my life.
Yeah.
I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, and I'm grown up.
Oh, me too.
And I don't know if that's by
That's the best way to be.
when I was a kid, I was really big into art, like drawing and writing poetry, and I never saw myself doing that as a career. But I would tell myself, like, just don't be afraid to dream, and don't be afraid to dream big, and don't be afraid to chase your dreams. Yeah, that's really it. And
Yeah,
always lead with love and compassion.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Stuart, thank you so much for coming on and talking to me today. Really appreciate your time. I know how busy you are.
People
Yeah,
think I'm
and
busy. I'm really
you're a
not.
single parent.
I'm not as busy as people think I
you
am.
look like you're busy. You work hard. You work hard. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
I appreciate you having me on. This was wonderful. Thank you so much.